Hi, this is Jim Stewart, and I'm Rick Collins, and this is Off the Bench. We've got Carlos Mendez on the phone. We're going to be talking about TCU football this morning. Carlos, just kind of give us an update right now. We're almost mid-season. How is TCU looking in mid-season form? I mean, top 10 ranking at number 8 is pretty impressive at this point for them.
Yeah, they sure shot high up the rankings, a lot higher than maybe you would expect it. But when you go on the road and beat the number 16, you're going to get rewarded. And you're unbeaten, and you look good doing it. Plus, you've got a little bit of a reputation with Gary Patterson. All those factors really combine to help you to help them move up into the top 10 at a pretty early point in the season. If you look at it objectively.
So coming up this weekend, playing the Mountaineers, they've been known the last decade for their speed. How is the defense for TCU going to be able to handle that kind of speed this year?
Well, the wild card really is the quarterback, because if you've got a quarterback who can run, that creates a problem for any defense. And that's been one thing that TCU has seen a lot of in the Big 12. In these 6 years, is quarterbacks who can also run. Not to mention the SMU guys that they've seen have also been able to scramble out and get away and make some yards. So that's a conundrum for defensive coordinators, and that's something that you face this week with Will Greer, because he is very mobile. He's a good passer. He's a good runner. He's really a terrific athlete, and that's the kind of thing that scares the pants off Gary Patterson, because you can play everything you want, you can do the right things, and suddenly the quarterback will make a play on you. When you think about it, that's how TCU made its living too for a couple of years. Trevon Boykin is a guy who could make his own play when everything else broke down.
So with Kenny Hill, do you see that he's kind of matured past some of the documented problems he's had in the past?
Yeah, it sure looks like it, and that's what everybody around him says, and that's what Gary Patterson says. Gary Patterson is not the kind of guy that's just going to, pump up a guy or make him look good in the media just to make him look good in the media. If he says it, if he says he's doing the right things and he's a more mature kid and is happy with the way he's working, what he's doing, then it's very likely true. And I think it shows in the way he's playing this year. He's taking fewer chances. He's trusting himself in the pocket a little bit more, and he's throwing better passes. Now, the coaches have designed a game plan for him that's, it's safer. There are shorter throws, but that's okay. You might do that anyway because he's got better weapons around him. He's got some terrific athletes around him. You think about just the freshmen alone that he's got in Jalen Rager and Kennedy Snell. These guys are very much playmakers. And you throw in Cavante Herman, who's healthy this year, kick returner receiver. That's a big deal for him to be healthy. He missed 5 games last year, came back, really wasn't the same, and that had a lot to do with the way the offense declined last year. Kenny Hill got hurt. He played the last game hurt. He was benched a couple of times. Confidence issues, and the season was just treading water. This one's off to a much faster start, and everybody's playing a lot better. It makes a big difference in the way the quarterback plays. Plus, they're protecting him. He's only been sacked. Let's see, I should have counted last week's. I think 5 times now, and probably 3 of them have been coverage sacks.
Do you think by the end of his season this year that we'll see some flashes of what he was at A&M that first start? I understand he's taking less chances, but when he came out of South Lake Carroll, he was really touted as being this unbelievable talent. And even though he's morphed into more of a game manager, do you see him loosening up a little bit in the sense that, he can get those 4 or 5 touchdown games, whether it's through the air or a combination of through the air on the ground like he had at A&M?
Yeah, it could. A lot of those, if he does have one of those 4, 5, 6 touchdown pass games, it could be that most of those, balls don't actually go into the end zone. They could be catch and runs, big plays that go for 40 yards or 50 or 70. Guys that run into the end zone with the ball after taking a pass that's shorter, on the flats or over the middle, one of these slants or one of these bubble screens or tunnel screens, because those are the kind of guys they have catching the ball this year. is very fast guys, and in the case of Jalen Rager, a very fast and very strong guy. Guys who can break tackles. They've also got a running back that they really like in Darius Anderson, who can catch the ball and who is really, really a good runner, especially in open space. These are the kind of guys that can take a catch, a short catch, and turn it into a touchdown. So if he turns in one of those games, it might be because that's what's happened a lot.
Right. And so do you say that he's got a lot more weapons now? Do you see that as an advantage that they've had moving into the Big 12? Is that they're able to kind of get their hands on some of these recruits that they may have not otherwise been able to get a hold of?
Yeah, in fact, Gary Patterson talked about it Monday on the Big 12 Coaches Conference call, because we were talking about ESPN Game Day coming to town, and he said, that's one of the benefits of Big 12 exposure. Game Day hadn't been here since 2009.
Right.
But now it's here, and he said he morphed into recruiting talk, and he said with them and West Virginia, who came into the league at the same time, recruiting is a big deal for a Power 5 conference, because you've got to recruit depth too. You need 2s and 3s that you can play with. You can win the Mountain West with 1s, but in the Big 12, people are going to get hurt, and that really hurt TCU in the first couple of years in the league, and they hurt them in 2016 too, to be honest. So as he's talking about recruiting, he's talking about some of the benefits, which is you can recruit depth, but you can also recruit, those tip of the spear guys, the higher profile guys, those 4-star guys that they're getting more and more of than they ever have. 2 years ago, they got a record 10 4-star guys for them. Last year was 7. And, now they've got a 4-star quarterback for 2018. So these are the areas where, Big 12 membership is really helping them when they can get into living rooms that they used to not be able to.
Does this mean that they think they're going to be competitive in the Big 12 for quite some time? I know they've had a couple years in the last decade where they came close, or they were the staple of the Big 12, but it didn't last past that singular season, or those 2 seasons over the last decade. Do they think with these new draft classes coming in that they're going to be able to compete on a yearly basis with a Oklahoma or a Baylor when they're not in a massive amount of trouble? But do you think that they now feel that they have the tools and the recruitment classes coming in where they can end up trying to become one of those power schools in the NCAA and reach for the playoffs every year?
I don't know if they think what they're doing right now is enough. I'll bet they would tell you they need to get even better draft classes, signing classes, and I'm sure every recruiting analyst in the country would tell you that, because until you're recruiting at the level that Alabama is and Ohio State is, LSU is, and Michigan is, when you're getting, your handful of 5-star guys and more 4-stars than everybody else, schools like TCU still get fewer than 5 4-star guys a year, until you start getting 15 to 18 to 24-star guys and sprinkling in 3 or 4 5-star guys. You're just not going to have the level of talent that these other schools have. And then you've got to do it consistently, where you can be one of the top 10 teams in recruiting every 4 or 5 years, 4 out of 5 years, 8 out of 10 years, where you can land, in the top 10 when the rankings are evaluated.
What's really interesting is people don't tend to remember that TCU is a tiny school, and the fact that they're in the top 10 ranking right now is unbelievable based on their school size.
Yeah, and it wasn't that long ago that TCU was, just an also-ran private school in Texas in all of these sports. But, they have a national class football program now. They invested in basketball, and that's starting to pay off because they've got a real coach, with apologies to everyone else who coached here. And baseball is a perennial College World Series team. And I've talked to the athletic officials at TCU about this, and they say that, football and baseball are their brands. They're trying to bring basketball along because they've got an alum, a favorite son, coaching the team now. They rebuilt the basketball arena. They poured tons of money into it. And these three areas are really lifting the entire campus. They put a ton of money into a lot of areas, not just in athletics. They're trying to build a medical school as well. So there's a lot of things that are changing around TCU that, people who were around it in 1985, 1988, 1990 probably could not have imagined 15 or 20 years down the road.
Yeah, and I would say, TCU is one of quite a few universities in the area, but in terms of sports, they really are standing out right now.
Yeah, and I think, athletics is, Gary Patterson calls football the front porch of the university because that's how you get people to notice you and come inside. But, college athletics right now is big time in a lot of areas. Everybody is starting to get bigger. Even in baseball, they're starting to pay coaches close to $1 million a year. So if you're not going to be a school that invests in athletics, you're just going to fall behind in terms of, a notice and attention. And it helps you when you're also trying to recruit students to come to school. TCU's enrollment application is rising every year, and they're still admitting the same number of students, but their applications they're almost doubling since they started this football since the Rose Bowl. That really attracted a ton of applicants, especially from California.
Yeah, I bet.
California makes up the second biggest number of students at school besides Texas.
Wow.
Well, if you could just real quickly, because we're coming up on a hard break, if you could just quickly go over how you think the game is going to go this weekend against the Volunteers.
Mountaineers.
Mountaineers. We've got a Vol in the office.
I see a lot of points. I see that quarterback Will Greer throwing for a lot of yards because good quarterbacks are good quarterbacks and they usually play good. TCU had some success against Ben Hicks from SMU because he was not accurate that day. He started hot, but didn't finish well. At Arkansas, Austin Allen had a tough day because he couldn't run the ball. He didn't have a running game behind him. And last week at Oklahoma State, TCU played one of its best defensive games probably in years, they'll tell you. Gary Patterson, I think, was really proud of it. And Oklahoma State really threatened them deep. But after that, it went away. West Virginia's got kind of a different game plan. They've got really run the ball. They've got a quarterback who is also a running threat. So there's going to be a few more types of threats for TCU to try to defuse this week. It's going to be a good game. I think they'll have a good game. They're playing at home. That should help them, but it will take points to win this game.
All right, thank you. That's Carlos Mendez from the Fort Star Telegram. And when we come back, we will be going over is commercializing amateur sports now becoming part of the norm.